Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video on the channel today. In this video, we are going to be going over the top 10 wide receivers in the NFL draft. I previously did a video about the top 5 quarterbacks and the top 5 running backs, but since receivers kind of a more multiple position on the field, there's more than one wide receiver on the field at once, I decided to do top 10, and I think that this is a pretty deep receiver class this year. There are 10 guys that I really like, so that's why I decided to do 10. But before we get into the video, please make sure to subscribe. We're on the road to 100, hoping to hit that by the draft. Speaking of the draft, we are going to be live streaming the draft, hopefully watching a few of these guys get drafted that night. So make sure to tune in April 27th on a live to come join me and to come react with me and see all the craziness that is the NFL draft. But all right, we're going to start with the top 10. And I will say, in doing kind of some research for this video, my top 10 is a little bit different than a lot of others' top 10. I didn't see one quite like mine. There are a couple guys I like a little bit more than some people. Some guys I don't value as much. So I would definitely like to hear what your guys' opinions are in the comments down below. If I overrated a guy, if I underrated a guy, let me know. I love hearing what you guys' opinions are. We're going to start at number 10, and then we're going to go all the way down to number 1. So make sure you stay till the end to see my full list. But starting with number 10, we're going to go with A.T. Perry, the receiver from Wake Forest. He's tall, he's got a good frame, he's got long arms, he's pretty fast, and he is pretty physical. Unfortunately, though, he sometimes struggles with those drops, and he sometimes is not the best in terms of suddenly changing direction, all of that shiftiness that you need as like a route runner. But I think he's worth, a third round pick. I've been seeing some people taking him in like the fourth, fifth round. Again, I'm a little bit higher on him than a lot of people, but I would take him in about the late third, early fourth round. Next, Marvin Mims, wide receiver from Oklahoma. He's fast. He's a smooth route runner, and he's got really good yards after catch ability. You throw him a slant, he could take it to the house. He is always gonna. He's one of those guys that's almost always gonna pick up extra yards after the catch, and he's really good at evading defenders and everything like that. Unfortunately, though, he's his size. He's 5'11", 183. That's not terrible, but that's not like great size for a receiver. And contested catches are really not his specialty, unfortunately. Next, we have number 8, Cedric Tillman, the wide receiver from Tennessee. Really good size at 6'3", 215. He's physical, and he's got really good ball skills, especially on those deep balls. If you guys watched Tennessee last year with Hendon Hooker at quarterback, they threw the deep ball, and they threw the deep ball often. So, really impressive ability to track the football, catch it in stride, everything like that. Unfortunately, not a big speed guy. I don't really see a big second gear with him. It kind of seems that he kind of has speed, but he's not able to further accelerate. You see a lot of receivers sometimes like run under those deep balls, and sometimes it looks like he's a little bit slower in the longer routes. And this isn't really a negative so much as it is a note that he wasn't the wide receiver one last year. Jalen Hyatt was definitely wide receiver one, but that's not necessarily an end all be all because Justin Jefferson wasn't wide receiver one at LSU, and Justin Jefferson's like the second or third best receiver in the NFL. So it is what it is. Additionally, he did get hurt a little bit last year, and he wasn't as fast. I think he had a foot injury, so that may be limiting him a little bit. So when he gets back to the NFL, hopefully he can get healthy and recover that speed that he had in 2021. Number 7, I have Tank Dell. Tank Dell's got great top end speed. He's a really big play creator, and I honestly think that he has upside as a returner. I think he's one of those guys that you can really put as a punt returner, kick returner, and be fine. Obviously, being the number 7 receiver, he might not be an instant starter right away. He might be second or third guy on a lot of teams. So playing him on special teams could provide him more value. Needs to get better with his route running and his physicality. I think that's really the two big things with him. Just needs to be a better route runner and be more physical. Number 6, Josh Downs. This guy is quick. He's fast. He's like a little jackrabbit. He kind of just jumps all over the field. The best comparison I've seen for him so far is Kadarius Toney, and I honestly really agree with that. I think Kadarius Toney is maybe a little bit quicker, but I think Josh Downs is probably a good way to describe, or Kadarius Toney is probably a good way to describe Josh Downs. Quick feet, quick change of direction. And I actually put 2 pluses for athleticism. I think the guy's a really, really good athlete. Unfortunately, though, he's a small build, so he could deal with some injury stuff. That's kind of what Kadarius Toney's dealing with. And then he did have some trouble with focus drops where he's kind of looking away as he's catching the ball and it's slipping through his hands, etc. So those are things that I think, or the last thing I think you can coach out in the NFL, but the small build, unfortunately, he's not going to get much taller and not much stronger in the NFL. Number five, and this is the guy who I've really been back and forth on. I have put him on my personal list as high as number two. Um, but right now, I'm going to stick him at five just because I just don't know. And that's Jalen Hyatt, the other Tennessee receiver on this list. Speed. This guy is fast, man. He is a burner. He has big play capabilities. I mean, you watched him, the game against Alabama, he scored 5 touchdowns. You know, what? I don't know if there's a single player in the Nick Saban era in Alabama that has scored 5 touchdowns against Alabama. So for him to do that just shows what a big play threat he is. And surprisingly, he's also very good at run blocking. So that is actually a big plus. The way defenses are going to play him, it's going to be a lot of off-man coverage because of his ridiculous speed. Think about the way that defenses play the Dolphins receivers, where they can't play them up tight because the Jaylen Waddle and Tyreek Hill will just blow right past them. Um, that'll be a big benefit for that team's running game. That'll be, a big benefit for their short and intermediate passing game. A lot of times at Tennessee, and I'm sure a lot of times in the NFL as well, he'll get a lot of those just pitch and catch opportunities where, that slant route will be wide open, that out route, zig route, the flat route, whatever route will be wide open because the DBs are so moved off. And then if they're, ballsy enough to actually press up on him, he can just beat them over the top. So he's a very, very dangerous wide receiver. One negative thing about him, though, is that his route tree is not very defined. Now, as a very vocal Seahawks fan, this was a lot of the criticism behind DK Metcalf coming into the draft. And my thing with that is it's like, okay, he can fix his route tree. Like, you can become a better route runner. He wasn't even asked to run that many routes at Tennessee. Like, again, with that vertical passing game, he wasn't asked to run a lot of those like short and intermediate routes. So maybe he is actually really good, and Tennessee just never ran it. Same thing with DK at Ole Miss. DK was just running like posts and goes and all of that at Ole Miss, and Jordan Teama was just bombing into him. So I think that Jalen Hyatt can become a better route runner. I think he can, expand his route tree a little bit, but I just haven't seen him do it. And that is a big part of playing receiver. So we'll just have to find out. Number four, Jordan Addison out of USC. I love his route running. I love his hands, and I love his footwork. He is very technical, I think, at the way he plays receivers. So I love that a lot. I do think he needs to get a bit stronger and he needs to get a bit better in contested catch situations. Um, but he reminds me a lot of like a Tyler Lockett type of guy where, he's not the biggest, strongest, fastest, but he's just a solid receiver. He's got good hands, going to run good routes. And sometimes that's all you need in the NFL level, right? Number three, and this is another guy. Jalen Hyatt and Quentin Johnson are two guys that um, I think are the biggest wild cards. Both of these two guys could be the first and second best receivers out of this class, and I think there's more bust chance with Quentin Johnston, but I still think that their ceilings and their floors are very fluctuative. Is that a word? Fluctuative? They fluctuate a lot. Am I just making shit up? Anyway, Quentin Johnson, guys, he's big. He's 6'3", 210. He's got good speed. He's got good athleticism. He's got a good catch radius. Um, the thing with Quentin Johnston, though, is that it almost feels like he doesn't fully utilize his God-given abilities, his God-given gifts, right? His frame, his speed, his size. He plays smaller than he is, and that's a big concern for me because there are guys who are 5'10" that can just go up and get it, that can wrestle with the DB, that can out physical somebody, and that's almost better than a guy who is 6'4", 6'3" in Quentin Johnston's case, who play smaller. Quentin Johnson, he doesn't really high point the ball on those high throws. He tends to not extend his long arms on catches. He tends to be a body catcher. So it's one of those things where it's like, yes, your frame and your God given abilities are great, but where how are you utilizing it, right? But I think if he can get a grip on that, if he can fully maximize his frame, his build, this guy could be unguardable. At his best, he's a fast, you know, big wide receiver. Think of him in kind of the same mold as a DK Metcalf. Although I think DK Metcalf always did a good job of hype. DK Metcalf is a much better contested catch receiver, I think. And DK Metcalf, um, At least now, maybe when he was younger he did, but now catches more with his hands as well. So I think if you're looking at a guy who or what he can be, think of like a DK Metcalf type of receiver, a big physical threat who has become a much better route runner and a much better catcher of the football. Next, we have number 2, Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers, he runs great routes. He's got good speed. He's got really good yards after catchability. I mean, there's plays where he's running all over the fucking field and no defenders are touching him. I do think again he needs to get better with contested catches, and he does need to work on his drops a little bit. Unfortunately, there were a good amount of drops. But then that leads to my number 1 receiver, and I will say about this guy, I think a lot of scouts are agreeing with me on number 1, or I'm agreeing with a lot of scouts, however you want to say it, and a lot of people are theorizing that the receiver class overall is not as good as the general public is thinking that they are. Um, but this guy is the one guy that's like definitely a first rounder. Like this guy's definitely going in the first round. Maybe not the other guys, but this guy's definitely a first round pick, and that's Jackson Smith and Jigba. I remember in 2021, that game he had, I think it was in the Rose Bowl, where he was just ballistic. Like he was going insane. Um, and that's really stuck with my head this whole year. He didn't play a lot last year because of injuries and everything like that. But honestly, like that's not a big thing for me. JSN, you're getting great hands, you're getting great route running, great separation. I mean, the dude's always open. He's not the fastest wide receiver ever. And like I said, he was injured a little bit this year. But at the end of the day, like I just think Jackson Smith-Njigba is such a good receiver. He's going to be such a high volume guy. Think of him in the same way you think of like 2019 Michael Thomas, where he was just a volume machine. He's not gonna kill you over the top. He's not going to make 100 guys miss and take a slant 80 yards to the crib. He's a smart receiver, runs good routes, has good hands. He's going to get a lot of catches. So I'll make more videos about this later. But if you're playing fantasy football this year and you want a guy and you're in PPR, points per reception, and you want a guy that's going to catch a lot of passes, I think Jackson Smith-Njigba is your guy. But that's my list for the top 10 receivers in this NFL draft class. Let me know what you guys think down below. I love to see your comments. Remember, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and we're live streaming April 27th. I will catch you guys in tomorrow's video. We have the next episode of Top 100 Prospects coming out tomorrow, so make sure you don't miss that. I love you guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.